Boys, I am in just trying to figure out what I'm playing. I've been dealing with figuring out DK this week. Injuries are the theme of the week and trying to figure them out. I think I've got my 20 max figured out. I think I got my DK quarterbacks figured out. Fanduel, I think I feel even stronger that I kind of know what I want to do. Well, I'm mainly just trying to figure out DK because that's where most of the money is. But yeah, I mean it feels so contrarian this week to pay up for quarterbacks. FanDuel is fairly simple as far as I'm concerned, to an extent, right? But I also have extreme. I wouldn't even call it bias. I just feel like I've bought into one guy that is so cheap that I can't not play him. Um, so yeah, let's get to the core plays at quarterback this week. I feel pretty good. I have built out my I usually try to play about 30 teams on FanDuel. I've built out all 30. I built out the quarterback pairings, I'll say. Typically I just try to build my quarterback pairings and then my lineups will build within, 30 minutes. It'll take me at max 30 minutes to an hour to build out all 30 teams by hand. Because I am still a hand builder because I'm not paying for anything. I'm just gonna build off the top of the dome, based off of who I like the most. So, quarterback wise, core play numero uno, and I love that he's kind of like the hammer of the slate too. It's Bear Bachmeyer at 11K taking on Cincinnati. Yeah, they only have a 28-point team total. I don't think it's probably the best on the slate, but I love his floor from a rushing ability. I would think 25 to 30 feels like a natural spot for him. If he was just a passer, I'd be much less inclined here. But his capability in the run game and his efficiency, we'll call it, in the passing game. I know he's had 30 plus attempts, which is actually shocking on that end. He should be a 25 attempt passer. That's kind of where he's most comfortable. I wouldn't expect 300 yards in this spot. But if he can get you one, he'll definitely get you the one touchdown through the air. If he can get you a second and about 200 yards, he should be able to give you 50 yards and a touchdown on the ground. That's going to get you into that 25-point range. I don't think it differentiates you too much from the top end of the board at 11K. He is a guy that he's kind of a priority as far as that goes. And I'm pairing him with each of the other quarterbacks. Usually I make a list of quarterbacks. I just pair them up and decide who I'm going to play. He's one of the top guys for me. He's paired with everybody. I really do like him a good bit. If I was building 5 teams, he's going to be involved in that because I think his ceiling is right up there with the top guys on this slate, taking on that Cincinnati team that I don't particularly like their defense. Second core play for me, I like Mason Heinschel a ton. His rushing upside is not factored in well, and he has good stack partners similar to Bachmeyer. Bachmeyer has 2 good stack partners. It's a very condensed route tree to that extent. I don't have issues playing him. Yes, he was freaking terrible against Notre Dame. You have to decide whether you buy into the fact that they actually didn't care about the game. They did care about the game. Who knows? Des Reed is probably not going to play. That's kind of where I'm leaning. He did not look good when he went down with that ankle. He's been battling injury all year. With him down, I think they throw the ball a little bit more, and they're going to get pushed. Georgia Tech, excuse me, this game has shootout written all over it. Georgia Tech's defense, absolutely abysmal. I do like his upside across the board. I think at 9,700, he's a really good value. So I'll play a good bit of Heinschel. He's a guy that I feel pretty comfortable pairing with any of the other quarterbacks that I'm going to keep in my pool. I think 300 yards, multiple scores, 50, 20 to 40 yards rushing. If he finds the box, even better. 20 plus points feels pretty locked and loaded, we'll say. I wouldn't say it's as bad of a defense as Stanford or NC State, but a Florida State scoreline feels pretty accurate there. So at 9,700, feel pretty good with that one. Finally, you guys know where I'm going. Everybody's going to keep talking about Kyron Drones and his rushing, right? I can't stand it. I'm honestly going so underweight on DK. I know he's 4,800. Everybody feels like they're going to jump there because of the rushing. It just, that feels so stinky. I refuse to go there. So y'all know where I'm going. I've been on this kid for long enough at this point. After that Georgia game, after that Texas game, I kind of got interested, right? And then I was on it for that Tennessee game. It felt disgusting, but it paid. So two relatively okay matchups the previous weeks. I think Auburn's a tough matchup. Auburn might be one of the better defenses in the conference. Oklahoma's similar. I like this kid Cutter Boley. I think he's a very solid prospect for them going forward. A guy that I'm looking forward to his growth over the offseason. I like the positive rushing ability. He's not going to kill me in the rushing category. He only has negative yards, like big negative yards, once. That was that South Carolina game. He was really just getting his feet wet by that point in the season. Dylan Stewart can wreak havoc on a poor young kid. But every game since up in here, I'm fairly okay with. I don't love the 12 and the 9, but you give me a 19 at 7,300, I am ecstatic. So that means he only needs 258 with 45 and 1. Okay, like give me that all day long. Taking on Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, not exactly a dominant defense, and they're fairly okay at stopping the run. They're not very good at stopping the pass. Boley's throwing the ball so well that I am heavily interested in Boley. I'm going to have him paired with every guy because at 7,300, he's way too cheap. A lot of people are going to go down here and get after Mateer. I think Drones get some run. I'm not interested in any of that. Moss, even. I would much prefer to just go down to Boley. I feel pretty good about that spot, and I'm more than happy to take shots there. Otherwise, as far as tournament options for me, and I'm going to be playing some of these guys for sure. I like Arch Manning a ton this week. I liked him last week. Didn't pay, but played okay for the relative pricing. I just think 25 points is in play here with the upside for 30 plus. I think 300 yards passing and 2 scores with another chance to have 2 more on the ground. Like, I don't think that you can discount a 37-point game with how terrible the run game has been for Texas. I don't think you can say that this Sam Houston game is out of the realm of possibility against Arkansas. He has been playing better when he doesn't face these top-end defenses. I thought he threw the ball pretty well last week, all things considered, especially when you say that his wide receivers were dropping passes left, right, and center. You look at what he did to Vandy. That's why I like Cutter Boley a good bit, 328 and 3. So I think Boley has that shot, and I would say Arch has the shot to have an even better game. I know he's more expensive. I don't think anybody pays up for Arch. That's the thing. So similarly, like on DK, I'm legit considering playing 3 out of my 5 kickoff entries at $20 a piece. Do I really want to pay $60 worth of Arch Manning? I don't know that I'm there yet. Maybe I end up swapping him down to a single entry because I think his ownership's just going to be extremely limited. Who wants to play Arch Manning? So I really do think that the ownership goes to Bachmeier or the guys above him, but that's discounting Arch's rushing capability too much. So I'm in on Arch. I am going to pair him up with all these guys, and I actually do have plenty of interest. I think his ownership comes in sub 10%. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. And I think he has the upside to drop a 37 burger here and just win you a slate. And he has great stack partners that he's going to get to. And that's what I'm going to end up playing him with. My other tournament pivot option is Mr. Underwood. So this is kind of injury dependent. I will take some shots here. Michigan's got a good matchup with Maryland. I don't think Maryland's any good. We know they're kind of going to score. We know Justice Haynes is out. If Jordan Marshall's out or limited, they're not going to be able to rely on Kuzal to just carry them. We're going to talk about him in a minute. So I think the rushing gets there for Underwood, and he's got a great stack partner in Marsh. Can he get me to 20 is the question. I don't expect him to run for 115 and 2, but I think there is the possibility that we could combine a 207 and 2 with a 26 and 1. And if we could combine those, we're in the 20s. So I think he can get there. I prefer Boley by a mile, but I do think there's some upside to Underwood in this spot, and maybe we are able to get there. So I'm willing to take some shots and throw him in, probably at extreme low ownership, because I think people go to Moss, Mateer, and Drones, or go all the way down to Boley instead of paying for Underwood. So I do have interest in Underwood. I don't love it, but I do have interest. And then otherwise, rounding out the pool, obviously I'm going to play some Haynes King. I'll have him paired in because he's just so too much of a raw projection. His raw projection is insane. Taking on Pitt. The concern for me on the Pitt side is they are very good at stopping the run. So if they have to throw the ball with Haynes King, can they deliver on the passing aspect? I know Carr got there to an extent by throwing to Fields. Fields got there. I think Fields is definitely a better weapon than anything Haynes King has to throw to. I do like Eric Rivers. I am a fan of his, but I don't know that he can get there. And then Pavia, you're going to have to play just for the fact that there's so much rushing upside. If they're trying to get him a Heisman, does he go for 300? Like there's too much ceiling to not play him. Similar to King. I mean, there's too much ceiling to not play him. You get these 45-point games, these 36-point games. You have to play him just for the ceiling. That's not to say I love the matchup, but I think you have to play him for the ceiling. And that kind of rounds out the pool. Now, I will say I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit of Sawyer Robertson because I think this game has some shootout potential. And I like Robertson doubles. So I'm going to play a little bit of Sawyer Robertson with some guys. Not everybody's going to get Robertson with them. Some guys will, some guys won't. And then Fafita, similarly, I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit here and there, but he's not I'm playing him with every iteration type guy, just because I think he only has one stack partner. Now, I do think there is 5 touchdown upside with him at 10K because of the matchup, but I would prefer to play some other ways personally, but I will have a little bit of those guys mixed in where I decide to match it up. I wouldn't confidently say you should play them unless if you're playing 20 teams, I wouldn't play them. I would much prefer to go with the other guys we talked about. And even then, I would probably leave out Underwood if that was the case of I wanted to limit teams. I'm going to stick to my Haynes King, Pavia, Bachmeier, Arch Manning, Heinz Schultz, and Cutter Boley. And that's kind of what I would stick to as far as 20 max goes. So running back position, there's 2 guys that are core plays no matter what. And then there's 2 guys that would be core plays depending on injuries. That's where it gets weird. So Jeremiah Love is always in play. If you're playing Cutter Boley, you're going to be able to get the Love. I love the floor, and he could just outscore everybody solely based on floor. Projections are going to say that he's not even, his actual fantasy point average is way below his projection or above his projection. So he doesn't project great, but I think you can get there because wide receiver has a crazy amount of value. You got Cutter Boley, you got Underwood. I think you can pay up for Love, but he is kind of like paying for a quarterback. And projection-wise, the top 4 guys we talked about, King, Pavia, Bachmeier, and Manning, all project better. And except for King, they're cheaper. And King's got a 10-point projection better, basically, than Love, essentially. So I'm not like if you can fit him, great, but I don't think you go out of your way to jam Jeremiah Love in this spot personally. Where are we at with Jordan Marshall? They're saying he's day to day. Man, do you not just save him for I feel like you gotta save this kid for Ohio State for the game because that's your season on the line. That's kind of why I'm in there. And I wouldn't play Jordan Marshall at 10-2 in the spot, even if he does play, just because there's crazy amount of risk that he comes out of this game. Katron Allen's getting a ton of workload, taking on Nebraska. Yeah, he had the bad game here. We were all over that 32 last week. That was kind of what led me to getting up there and getting up in the top of that Saturday kickoff tournament. I don't think Nebraska is going to be able to do too much on offense, but this is going to kind of be a ground and pound game. I'd expect 20 plus carries. Does he find the box multiple times is the $1 million question. At 8,900, I feel pretty good with the workload, so I don't mind. I don't mind having him be a core option at 8,900. I feel pretty good in that range, but there's multitude of guys you can kind of pivot to around there that I feel fine with. It'll just depend, right? Now we get to the injury spots that can create core plays. Mark Fletcher is questionable. They're saying he's trending in the right direction. The $1 million question here, well, yeah. So, and he wasn't on the injury report. Now, they did this same thing with CJ Daniels last week. He wasn't on the injury report, warmed up, was active, yada, yada. He didn't play a snap against NC State. So do they do something similar with Fletcher here against Virginia Tech? I'm kind of thinking they do, which gives me a ton of interest in Gerard Pringle at 7,100. If I knew Fletcher was out, Pringle is my top play on the slate from a running back standpoint. For me, it's not close. Before last week, he had scored in every time he had touched a football in a game. He had 17 carries last week. Virginia Tech is just a swinging gate as far as a run defense goes. So I would expect 100 yards and another touchdown in this spot. And at 7,100, he is a fabulous play. He would be a core play. Am I nervous about it? Yes. Will I take shots on it? 100%, because I'm playing 30 teams. So I'm going to take some shots at 7,100, even if we get word that Fletcher's active. I think you still take shots here because you do have pivot options, and it's 11 o'clock game. So you can just swap. We'll end up spending that last 30 minutes swapping around, figuring it out who we want to play in that range by comparison. Similarly, Kuzal, I think, is a perfectly fine play. He had 15 carries. I mean, was it good? No, he was fumbling. He did not look great. I just find it very difficult that you're not going to want to play him in a matchup with a Maryland team that Antoine Raymond dropped 240 yards against. Where's Antoine Raymond? Which you're not playing Antoine Raymond this week for obvious reasons. Okay, they were smart and priced him down. So let's look at his Maryland game. 41 carries, 240 yards, and a touchdown. Kuzdal isn't getting that, but there's no running backs. The likelihood that he gets 20 plus touches in this spot is massive, especially if with Marshall out. If Marshall's in, Kuzdal probably ends up with like 10, 15 carries. You're kind of hoping he finds the box. I don't particularly love him with Marshall in. I just think Marshall probably gets held out, and that's going to give us a pathway to 20 plus carries. Also gives me the pathway that I think Underwood could really get there in that sense. So that's one of those things that's extremely interesting. Other players in the pool, we'll talk some more about injuries here in a second. I think LJ Martin's in your pool at 8,700. His workload, very similar to Katron Allen. Matchup's plenty good. I don't think Cincinnati's exactly a vaunted run defense. I would expect a ton of carries, a good amount of yards, catches the ball fairly well. I mean, 20 points feels like it's in play, no doubt about it, at 8,700. So I have no issues flopping off of Katron Allen to get the LJ Martin. I don't know how I'm not gonna. I might get to this. Y'all know I'm a sucker for Bryson Washington. Arizona just gave up 12 carries. Let's look at the Tyree Walker line. What did Tyree Walker do last week? Because it's in here. Where is Tyree Walker? Let's go to Cincinnati. All right. Tyree Walker last week against Arizona had 12 carries for 119 yards. That's kind of leading me to say I'm interested in Bryson Washington a little bit because he had 14 carries for 97 yards. That's the most he's had since Arizona State in September. It's the healthiest he's looked since September. So he has upside. I know the kid has upside. I've seen it too many times. Now, I'm going to keep him in my pool. I might get there a little bit, especially if Pringle and Kuzol are off the table. That's going to give me a 7K player that I'm interested in at least. However, if I'm going down, and I'm going to do this a good bit, because if I'm saying I'm playing King, I'm playing Pavia, I'm playing Bachmeyer, and I'm playing Manning, and they're all at the top of the board, Riscano is going to get a ton of play for me because Baylor can't stop anything on the run, and he's my top tournament option as far as taking a punt. If he gets 13 carries, I think there's a legitimate shot that 13 carries turns into 150 yards and 2 scores, and he breaks the slate. He has the capability to break the slate. So I'm going to take shots here. I think he's the most likely of this backfield to score a touchdown. I'm going to have plenty of this because I like this a ton. So I'm willing to take the risk. I don't know that you should, but I'm going to take a ton of risk here. And I'm willing to take it on because I think that the upside is through the roof. And look, he did dominated Cincinnati too. That's what I'm saying. I think LJ Martin is a sneaky play at the top end to get off of Katron Allen and to get off of one other guy that is up here. I don't really love this top range. Like, I'm not playing Emmett Johnson. I doubt I play Marshall. I'm not playing Hardy. Bishop, I considered. If I'm there, I might be interested. I just don't know that his ceiling is much different than these guys. So I'd rather just pay in these low 8s. I know Ball, I'm a fan, but the ceiling's not there. Allen's got more ceiling. Martin's got more ceiling. If CJ Donaldson's out, I do have interest in Bo Jackson. His floor's good. His ceiling's fine. I think he finally scored a rushing touchdown. He still just does not get red zone work, and it drives me insane. I still think there's the possibility that Jeremiah Smith sits. I think there's the possibility that Carnell Tate sits. I think there's the possibility that CJ Donaldson sits. If they all are out, like, Bo Jackson's going to get work. So I have interest in him. And then by the same vein, if you need to punt, which I don't think you're going to end up needing to punt at running back, but let's just say you do, Isaiah West and James Peoples are perfectly fine options at 56 and 55. I probably prefer West, but Peoples did have the Donaldson role last week. He had 3 red zone touches, turned 2 into touchdowns. I just probably prefer West because if they get way out in front, it's going to be the West show, and I think he could press for 10 carries. This is very similar play to Kobe Martin last week. Kobe Martin did not play out. I just don't think there's any reason that CJ Donaldson ends up playing. Yeah, he looked good in practice. Great. But, like, why play him? You know, same thing. Why are you going to play? If you're going to hold Jeremiah Smith out last week, you're going to hold Carnell Tate out the last 2 weeks. Maybe they play a couple snaps, but there's no point in getting them banged up. So I think Bo Jackson is in play, but I prefer Martin. I prefer Allen in that same range, just for the simple fact that I know those guys are getting 20 touches, and I don't know that Bo's going to get there. I'm going to sprinkle some Bo in. You have to sprinkle some in because 150, he's the Malachi Fields from last week, right? I know 150 yards and 2 touchdowns is coming eventually. He just hadn't had it yet, but I know it's coming, so I'm going to make sure to sprinkle it just a hair in case he rips off 2 75-yarders in this spot because Rutgers sucks. But I'm also going to make sure I have a little bit of exposure to Isaiah West and James Peoples because I'm paying down so much. and I like Riscano as the preferred option at 6,600. But if I don't have that available to me, then sure, I'll go down to Peoples and West. I just think you're going to end up having it available to you. I don't think personally that Desmond Reed plays. He was pretty banged up in that spot. That's going to leave you to Jacari and Turner. I don't mind Turner. Not my favorite play, but I don't mind it. If you wanted to get there at 8-2, I'm okay with it. It's not my favorite, though, like I said. So, yeah, I think it's a lot of injury stuff that you're going to have to factor in here. And it just gets weird. You know, if you get into a situation where you're playing, I'm probably going to end up with a good bit of Love Riscano on some of these teams. And I'm probably going to end up with, if I can't get to like Katron and LJ, or I'm going to end up with Katron LJ as the combo pairing. But there is not a Jordan Marshall-esque play from last week where you just jam them and stick them in and you're done. You know, no way that there is this week. All right. Core plays at wide receiver. I do not like the top end. Full stack, like, honestly, if I'm paying up for anybody, it's going to be Mekhi Lemon, but I doubt I pay up for anybody. I kept him in the pool just for the simple fact that he projects well. He has one of the highest. He has the highest projection out of the bunch. I'm probably not going to pay for anybody up here. Even Staley, I have moderate interest in. He's my favorite of the Tennessee wideouts if I was going anywhere. So I don't mind Staley. He's probably the highest I want to go in this spot. But realistically, core play number one is Chris Bell. I do think he hasn't been great. We know he's going to get force-fed the ball. I don't care what the quarterback situation is. Kind of why I'm wavering on Miller Moss is Braum coming out and kind of saying he doesn't like, you know, he kind of crapped on Moss in his presser to an extent. Bell's going to get the ball. I don't care who's throwing it. And SMU is a great matchup. We've just seen wide receivers just eat against SMU all year long. I've picked on SMU all year long. Josiah Trader beat him up. Keelan Marion beat him up. Malachi Toney was getting targets. So I really do think 20 – he feels like he's way too cheap. He's gotten – you see the upside here, 30, 35, 25. I think something in the 20s is coming. He's by far and away my favorite spend-up option and my favorite play over 7K even at wide receiver. I'm going to play a lot of Chris Bell as even just a one-off in this spot. And I'm perfectly happy playing him in a lot of these teams. He's definitely my favorite player from that standpoint, especially if I'm not stacking a team here. Rest of the core options for me, I got 3 6K guys that I'm going to make core plays. And I think they're just smart. Anytime that I'm playing their quarterback, I'm going to stack them. And anytime I'm in this range, I'm going to play them. So Kenyon Sadiq, I don't think you end up seeing DeCorian Moore, and I think the wide receivers are still pretty banged up. So at 6.8K, the touchdown upside is too big. 20 points, 2 out of the last 3 weeks. He earns a ton of targets. He's the best athlete on the field from a size speed perspective. He's too cheap. He should be in the mid sevens at worst. So I will be playing Sadiq if I'm down in this range, along with 2 other absolute beauties. Andrew Marsh is so cheap. He should be 75 easy, similar to Sadiq. He's 1K too cheap, basically. If I'm going to be in on Underwood, you have to play Marsh with Underwood. 20 points is in there, no doubt about it. So I'm fully in on Andrew Marsh. He's the unquestioned number 1. And if I'm in on Cutter Boley, you know I'm in on Kendrick Law. Kendrick Law at 6'5", also far too cheap. I'd say he should probably be about 7K. Not 7,500 necessarily. I wouldn't really love him there, but at seven, I think he's a fair price. 6'5" is too cheap in my opinion. Too much upside, man. Too much upside. He's got 15 or more in 3 of the last 4. I really do think that he's a very viable option. He's the only guy I'm pairing with Cutter Boley, and I will be pairing him a ton. So I'm extremely interested in all of those mid 6K guys, which is why I really only want to pay up for Bell for the most part, unless I'm stacking. So it's Bell and the 3 6K guys. So I can afford to kind of pay for whatever I want otherwise and just do everything you could need. Now it's an interesting week. That's why I think you're going to end up getting to more Jeremiah Love, because if you're playing Cutter Boley at 73, you play his stack partner at 65. Now you got an insanely cheap stack. You can fit Bell, you can fit an expensive quarterback, you can fit Jeremiah Love, and it's no problem because there's value everywhere on this slate. Now, looking at your stack partners. So I think it's important we talk about Arch and his stack partners. Ryan Wingo is your number one stack partner. You have to pair him with Ryan Wingo. Now, I do think double stacking Arch is extremely viable. And we talked about two guys that I think are core plays at 6,500. Another guy that I think is a core play at 6,600 or 6,800. So Emmett Mosley's going to go non-owned whatsoever. He has at least 7 targets in each of the last 3 games. I think Arch doubles are a big-time play. Now, if Wingo holds on to the football, he's going to have a monster game here. It's just a question of if he holds on to the football. But Mosley at 66, I think, is a very viable option as well. That plays well. I think there's going to be instances where I end up needing to go Arch with just Mosley and pay up for Bell. But I think you need to stack Arch because his path to getting there is going to be 3 touchdowns passing, 2 touchdowns passing probably, and then throwing for about 250, 300 yards. He's going to run some. But I think Mosley goes extremely low owned because of the other guys, the other 3 in that range, soaking up so much ownership. Otherwise, I think Josh Cameron, you look at the Baylor guys, Baylor's going to have to chuck it in this spot. That's why I have some moderate interest in going to Sawyer a little bit. You got Cameron, Trigg, and for me, Cole Wilson. I think Cole Wilson goes under-owned. He's probably my favorite as the second stack partner. I think most people would go Cameron, Trigg. I'm going to prefer going to Cole Wilson personally. With Hawkins probably at best suspended for the first half, I think Wilson, he gets a ton of target share and has more ceiling than we expect. His kind of rise to prominence coincides with Kobe Prentice's fall off. It's possible that Prentice plays more, but he hasn't been playing a lot of snaps. So I would expect Wilson to start with Cameron and Trigg and be the primary beneficiary of Ashton Hawkins missing that first half personally. So if I'm in on Heinzel, then obviously you got to decide between your Kenny Johnson, Raphael Williams, unless you want to double stack. I think it's perfectly acceptable to double stack in this situation. I would side with Rafi Williams personally. He gets more target share, better floor. He's got a little bit of ceiling. Early in the season, he showed it a little bit against that West Virginia game with 100 yards and a touchdown. I don't know. I mean, I think you're going to have to take shots at both. Kenny Johnson's been a little better of late. It's you just take shots on both. You mix and match. If you're going to play Heinzel a ton, you just take some Williams, some Johnson, and some of both. See what happens. Excuse me. And I think you just kind of figure it out from there. I'm not going to pair Haynes King. No, I'm not pairing Haynes King. I know Eric Rivers would be my preferred option, but he's priced more than I would like. I'd rather just pay down and play King with the those other guys. Let's see. If I'm pairing Bachmeier, which you don't have to, I would pair Chase Roberts. I like him in half PPR setting more than I like Parker Kingston, and I like the price tag at 8,200 a lot more. That would be my preferred stack partner there. Let's see. Fafita, if I'm playing, it's obvious. It's Chris Hudson. He's the only one getting enough target share. So Hudson, I don't mind as a contrarian way to get off of the Riscano play. And then the last guys, other than, let's see. So I don't mind Keelan Marion as a punt play at 62. I would much prefer just go up and get Kendrick Law and Marsh or whatever. I'm probably just going to end up paying up to the 65 range because Marion's such a sketchy play by comparison. then we have to consider this. So similar to the Ohio State running back situation, if we get word that both of these two are out, then we get into value land. Ennis is your top option. He didn't do great last week, but that doesn't mean he's not going to do great this week. So at 5,800, he's my preferred play. I think Claire is interesting if you had to go to 5,100. I would prefer Mylan Graham slightly. To Max Claire. But I don't think there's that much of a difference. Claire's going to get you more catches and more targets. Graham has much more capability to take the big play. So I think it's 6 half dozen another. So I think either or is fine if you need a punt at a spot. So, like I said, I'm going to be playing some doubles. I'll play a little bit of game stacks here and there. Favorite game stack is probably contrarian as crap. I'm going to be playing. I will definitely play this because I want to. Playing that. So, but I mean, Boley's going to be inserted a lot for me. I'm going to have a very hard time not going there. So I would say if I was building this team out, I'm definitely going to want Bell. I'm going to want one of Marsh or Sadiq. Definitely. So let's just go Marsh just to kind of see where that leaves us. Let's go here. I mean, look at that. I mean, could that not have fit any better, folks? Riscano, Love, Law, Bell, Marsh. I'm 100 off of being able to afford my guy Sadiq, but that's fine. I got no issues playing Marsh. You just play this sucker. You know what I mean? That's one way to do it. Other way is, let's just say I got word that Pringle's in. I like Pringle a ton. Then I'm at 12-2. I do not want to go down to Keelan Marion here. I don't particularly want to come off of Bell necessarily in this spot. That is a frustrating spot to be in, actually, because I would really want to pay up for Love at that point. What's the top end? So I guess you technically in this spot, you would go Bishop. I don't want to go Bishop McGowan. I'd rather go down a little bit. So then I'd be able to pay up a little bit. So like, yeah, I mean, there's tons of ways to play this. You can also go to Love Riscano, and I think Love Riscano in that spot is the optimal way to play it. Yeah. Otherwise, you're trying to cut too much of a corner. So I that's the way I would prefer that is definitely Love Riscano. And I mean, the upside's just through the roof on that sucker. So anyway, that's kind of the way I'm looking at playing this. We'll have more tomorrow. We're going to have more injury news and those dropping during the day today. I'll get a good idea in that spot. And I'm going to work on getting these Fanduel teams built, getting these DK teams built, and trying to decide ultimately how the heck I'm going to play the tournaments in DK this weekend. We'll see. I don't know. I'm not certain how I want to play it, but good luck this evening in tonight's slate, which let me see. I mean, there's not a lot to break down tonight. Tonight's extremely difficult slate. It's an extremely fun one because you get UNLV taking on Hawaii, both quarterbacks extremely viable. And then you get the Florida State, which is extremely viable to play anything from that. Deuce Robinson is probably my top option. I have two different versions because of Jaden Thomas being questionable. So I played a Calandria team with Alejado, and I have a Calandria Alejado with basically a game stack there. And then I have a Castellanos with Alejado with Jaden Thomas in. So just two versions, and I'll just wait and see, and I can always pivot if I need to if Jaden Thomas gets ruled out. So I will see you guys tomorrow morning talking live before lock, trying to get up to date injury news and notes, check the weather, mainly because I'm going to build this stuff and then I'm going to check the weather later. Wait for my weather guy to give me some info. And yeah, so I'm going to be building for the next little bit before I go to work. And then I'll build this evening while I get to enjoy UNLV taking on Hawaii, which is one of the better games of the week, actually, because this week is doo-doo cakes for actual games. Not a lot of